Well, let me ask you this then, Bert. Obviously, you're seeing the all-time highs happening in gold. Do you find this telling, right? What can we read between the lines here of what it's saying about gold and what it's saying about the dollar?
Yeah, what now in my work, it shows that the big smart money is going for gold as the ultimate safe haven. Okay, and that is really important because they already think ahead. They say, okay, if everything is going to start crumbling and so on, then the Federal Reserve will have to come to the rescue, and they will create maybe another 10 or 20 trillion dollars in artificial money. You know, the Federal Reserve does that with a computer. They used to have to print the money. They don't have to print money anymore. Now it's all done with computer. It's just a guy with a keyboard, and he can create $10 trillion very, very quickly. So that's what they're anticipating now. So, and we all know by history, Zimbabwe and Venezuela and Argentina, what happens when they increase the money supply by such huge amounts. The currency value goes down. But the United States has an advantage. And so the people that think that the U.S. dollar is going to go to zero, I think they're going to be wrong, because the U.S. dollar is still the strongest currency in the world.
The Bank of International Settlements covered the last of their bets against a rising gold price. Look, there's only one reason gold is carving out a higher stair step to rally from in 2024. Every other global central bank, both Western and the entire global South, have been openly on record as well as surreptitiously off record buying physical gold. And this leads to just one conclusion. Global central banks are accruing physical gold so they can revalue this gold at close to the market price. And when any one of these central banks commences this process, it will trigger every other central bank to synchronize. And as soon as this happens, the Fed will have basically one of two options. Either they admit they've sold title to the Treasury gold to multiple parties. Well, clearly that's not an option. Or they're going to have to move to revalue this 831 tons of rehypothecated positions in sync with global central banks so as to avert what would be a foreign exchange imbalance. Bear in mind that gold's a foreign exchange cross. So it would create an FX imbalance, which would trigger multiple repatriation requests from other central banks requiring their undervalued gold to be returned for jurisdictional revaluation purposes.
So the fun hasn't started yet for gold holders. Yes, it's encouraging, but this is just a beginning. I think we can get really excited when we see 3, 4, 5,000. I think that's when we can get really excited. Interestingly, gold is taking over as the world's reserve, not reserve currency, but the world's reserve. I fundamentally think we're going to get a split. We're not going to have a world reserve currency. We'll have a world currency, and then we'll have what is used by the majority of holders as a reserve. So we'll have a complete split because the two together form what money should be. Gold is a store of value. Currency is fungible, divisible, portable, universally acceptable, easy to pay in. So I think that's what's happening. I mean, obviously Basel III declared gold as a tier 1 asset next to US debt. And I think in the next months, maybe a year or so, it could even replace the dollar as a reserve.
One of those. So I look at it as an alternative gold, but I look at a number of things as alternative gold. And gold is still my favorite because of certain qualities. For example, you can't trace it. In Bitcoin, you can trace who owns it, where it's going, and so on. Governments can have that ability to trace it and so on. A gold piece of coin, it's not connected. I think not connected has benefits, particularly in a world where maybe connections can be more risky. And then also gold has been, for many thousands of years, universally recognized as a source of money. And central banks, it's the third largest source of money in central bank reserves. And I don't think Bitcoin is going to serve those types of purposes and so on.
We could offer a treasury debt instrument that included a gold convertibility feature. Why gold? It doesn't have to be gold. But since central banks in over 100 countries already hold gold as part of their international reserves, it seems a good, neutral reserve asset. And in my mind, a way to avoid political resentments. So let's imagine a U.S. Treasury instrument that works like this. On the day of maturity, the holder of the Treasury bond would be entitled to receive back either the face value of the bond or a pre-specified amount of gold. Now, I'll say that again. The day the bond matures, the bondholder gets back either the face value on the bond or else a pre-specified amount of gold. It is their option. So, for example,
get across to you, perhaps the news story you will be talking about in the next 12 months. This recent meeting of the BRIC nations, we had both Putin and Chinese officials publicly state that it's their intention to introduce a new currency and that they've already begun trading away from the dollar. I believe that is a news story that if you're not paying attention to and understand the ramifications from it, you better. And part of that is because we're going to see a peak in the US dollar. It's likely to happen with the euro breaking parity and everybody reporting that and all. And at that point in time, if I was long US dollars, I would look to get out of it. And that's been one of the things that's helped suppress gold from getting up the highs. And I think that's going to be the key to ignite gold. But I see that happening now fairly soon because they're openly speaking about it. And we're seeing other countries, including the Saudis, talking about joining the BRICS. So this is a new story that's not getting a lot of coverage and may still not for several months, Dave. But I think it's something people should start to at least focus on and learn more about.
Just as I wrote about it in Fake, gold is God's money. The government money is fiat currency, the dollar, the yen, the euro, and then now we have people's money called crypto. So the Fed is under a lot of pressure because they're the real fakes. You know, the Fed has destroyed the monetary system of the world along with its central banks. It has manipulated the market. In my opinion, they went criminal once they started just pumping, working for basically Wall Street. So when I watch Wall Street, I watch the price of stocks, and I watch what the Fed is doing. I just get nauseous. I just buy more gold.
You know, it's interesting. Over my shoulder, I have a picture of Roosevelt who confiscated gold. That's the executive order he used to confiscate gold. That's a $20 gold coin and a $20 gold certificate. It's interesting for those who don't know the gold certificates. Instead of saying "In God We Trust," it says "Payable to the bearer on demand" in gold coin. But what he in essence did was confiscate the gold and then devalue the dollar, making anyone who held gold 40% richer. And in essence, that's what I think we will see happen. Not confiscation, mind you, because in 1933, everyone owned gold. Now the estimate is 0.5% allocation from Joe and Jane six-pack all the way up to the Harvard Endowment Fund. But it's interesting if you look at the balance sheets of all the countries around the world and on the central bank balance sheet, gold is held in an account, you can't make it up, called the gold revaluation account. That's the name of it. And when you have the head of the Dutch National Bank come out and say, we can do this, all we need to do is revalue the price of gold to get our balance sheet in order, you have to wonder, with all of the banks that have been central banks that have been accumulating gold and repatriating gold from the traditional centers of trade, the Bank of England and the New York Fed, could it be, with tier 1 reserve status now given to gold, could it be that gold will go to levels that no one thinks possible? Could it be that Jim Sinclair was right when he said gold would reach a level of $10 or $15 or $20,000? It will be pegged to a new system. It will never come down. Could Jim Rickards be right? And I believe that it really is an option that is on the table, that these countries who have indebted themselves to a degree that can never be paid back, you can never pay back the debt burden that we have, let alone the 34 trillion. Forget about That, how about the 175 trillion in unfunded liabilities, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, government and military pensions. And remember, 1 trillion seconds ago was 31,688 years ago. You can't ever pay it back. So what do? You reclassify gold as tier 1. You incentivize all the central banks to not only repatriate their gold, but go on a gold buying spree of unmitigated proportions. You keep the media quiet, not tell anyone about what's going on. You have to dig to find it, and then are branded a conspiratorial, theory guy when you talk about this stuff. And lo and behold, to me, it makes the most sense. Why would the most powerful bank in the world reclassify gold as tier 1? Why is gold held in accounts called the gold revaluation account? Why is the head of the Dutch National Bank saying this? Why are all these countries, just recently, a whole bunch of countries from the Middle East and from Africa, repatriating their gold from the New York Fed and the Bank of England? Why do they continue to buy it, regardless of the drivers that would say gold should be going down? All of these things lead me to believe that gold is not about getting wealthy. Gold is wealth. Gold is wealth that has outlived 2 world wars, German hyperinflation, the Great Depression, and everything that's ever been thrown at it. And the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I do believe that if you are not a contrarian, you're destined to be a victim. And if you hold all of your assets in dollars, you're destined to go broke. That I do believe. And when you call me or anyone else to buy gold and silver, don't do it to become wealthy. Do it because it is wealth that has outlived everything the world's ever thrown at it. And by the actions of the most powerful bank on the planet and the most powerful bankers, who not just have the most money, but they know the playbook. They know where we're going. They know what's going to happen. They've been clued in, just like all the central bankers repatriating their gold in 2017 and 18, starting with the Bundesbank. The next year, buying more gold as a group than they did in the 60 years previously combined. And then in 2019, out of the clear blue, completely by coincidence, the BIS says, by the way, gold is now the only other tier 1 asset. Yeah, right. You didn't tell them what was coming. They know what's coming. Look at gold as a life raft and as an anchor to a new system. It's not about getting wealthy. It's about accumulating wealth that has outlived everything the world's thrown at it. To me, that's what this is all about. So I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, unfortunately.